Hello, my name's Will, and this is Will to Read. And despite what I said in the last video, I am back in the creepy basement, where I may be murdered. Before we get to anything else, I want to address missing the past 2 weeks. The first week I was really busy with work for my summer course and my internship, and the result is that this channel got put off to the side. And last week, my computer decided to stop charging. So I was without it for a week while it was getting fixed. I do have the next few reviews lined up, so assuming I don't have any more technical difficulties, output should be back to normal. Okay, with that, let's wrap this month up. So I initially didn't think I'd done much reading this month because I put down a lot of books. Not necessarily because I disliked any of them, but I wasn't really in the mood for them for whatever reason. So to start, I will do a brief list to mourn our unfinished comrades. Blake House by Adrian Savage. The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. Nocturnes for the King of Naples by Edmund White. And Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Now let's get to the books I did finish. So as I said in my last video, I've been reading a lot of chess books. I'm assuming a lot of people in the audience might not be interested in that, so I'm going to point out that the first 3 works I talk about are chess related, and that if you want to skip ahead, there are timestamps in the description. So you should go to Art and Labor by Eileen Boris, or Closer by Dennis Cooper if you only read fiction. Okay, the first book I finished, I actually read in June, but I started it after I recorded my June wrap-up, so it's now in the July video. It was, that's the back, Winning Chess Openings by Bill Robertie. The title pretty much explains what it is. It's a book which takes many common chess openings for both white and black and gives a basic overview of them intended for relatively newcomers to the game. I personally found it helpful, especially the section at the beginning where Robertie explains modern chess notation. I also thought it gave understandable annotations as to why certain moves make the most sense and why you might want to use particular openings. However, I hesitate to recommend it outright because there were quite a few typos in the text and in the notation, which made following along with the examples a puzzle in and of itself. I got this book primarily because I found a cheap used copy, and it's pretty okay if you can find it used, but it's definitely not worth buying full price, especially since there are definitely better intro opening books out there that don't have typos. The next book I read was The Logical Approach to Chess by Max Euwe, M. Blaine, and J.F.S. Rumble. I liked this one a lot better. Instead of giving overviews of specific moves or tactics, it instead gives a general overview of basic chess strategy. Its focus on basic concepts like controlling the center, I think, gave me a stronger base to build up from than the previous book's listing of openings, and I kind of wish I'd started with it. I found a lot of the ideas easy to understand and well explained. However, I again have to hesitate to recommend it. Again, I got this book because I found a cheap used copy, and if you can find that, I think it's fine. In fact, I don't think it's in print anymore, so you may not be able to find it new anyway. But this book is old. It's from 1958, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are plenty of classic and useful chess books which are older than that. However, they've been updated in new editions, and this one hasn't. That is to say, this book uses the old chess notation, and I found it relatively difficult to follow. It's not impossible, I still did it, but I don't think it's necessarily worth learning the old chess notation, since the new one is so much more intuitive. It is worth noting that the focus of the book is on principles, not game analysis, so you would still get a lot out of it, even if you don't play through the examples. So again, if you can find a cheap copy, go for it, but I'm also sure there are more modern books that do similar things, but don't force you to learn the old notation to follow along. The last chess book I read isn't a book, it's a magazine. Is this breaking the rules? No, because you're in my house and we do things by my rules. Wow, that gave me flashbacks to bad backyard basketball games. Anyway, I got a subscription to American Chess Magazine and just finished the June issue. I didn't read all of the pieces because some of the stories didn't interest me, but what I did read was quite good. Some things in there are the current US women's champ gave annotations for a few of her games. There was an article on the development of the King's Indian defense, a very interesting column on different endgame scenarios, and a reprint of a historical article from the original American Chess Magazine in 1897 about a tournament in New York, which, as someone currently working on a master's in history, thought was kind of cool. There's also a short fiction piece, which was fine. Very okay. It was, I mean, it was only 2 pages. Overall, I enjoyed it. Can't wait for the next issue to arrive in August, I think. There's not much here for people not interested in chess, but if you are, I'd recommend it. Okay, we're done with chess, at least for this wrap-up. Now we're going to talk about art history! The next book I finished is one I was reading for the art commune class that I was a part of for the DIY school Constructing the Real, a, quote, school for dead-averse anarchists, founded by the hosts of the Art and Labor podcast. I found the class operated more as a book discussion group because there was only assigned readings and videos, and I really enjoyed that. The book was Art and Labor, Ruskin, Morris, and the Craftsman Ideal in America by Eileen Boris. I do want to briefly point out that this book and the aforementioned podcast both, I believe, take their names from a William Morris speech, and the shared title is just a coincidence. The book discusses the arts and crafts movement. For those unfamiliar, the arts and crafts movement was an art movement which began in England in the latter half of the 19th century, inspired by the writings of the art critic John Ruskin and the poet, artist, and political activist William Morris, which emphasized a return to handmade items and was anti-needless consumption. As it moved to America from Britain, and how it was interpreted by various Americans from the late 1800s into the interwar period, including by Jane Addams of Hull House, Frank Lloyd Wright, and Louis Tiffany of Tiffany & Co., among others. If you're interested in art history, or the use of art as a political or moralistic tool, I think you'd probably find it very interesting. I also think Boris does a good job of not boring us.
Hey!
And discusses these events and ideas in a way I found engaging.
Hey, by the way, why are you wearing that ratty shirt?
For narrative purposes.
What?
You'll see what I mean in a few videos.
Oh god, are we doing... God damn it. Also, what am I?
That's very existential.
No, I mean, like, sometimes I'm an inner monologue, sometimes I'm you in the past, sometimes I'm an audience surrogate.
Yeah.
Well, there's not really any consistency. I mean, right now we're basically just doing a ripoff of Attention's banter with himself, which we haven't done before.
No, this is different.
How?
It just is.
Are you gonna answer my question?
I mean, you're pretty much just whatever I need you to be in the moment, and I hope that the audience can figure it out based on context clues.
Fair enough.
Art and Labor is an academic work, so if you're averse to that kind of writing, I will say I don't think it's as dry as some of those works can be, but it does have some of the trademarks of that style. It is kind of difficult to find a physical copy, hence why I'm not showing you one, but if you can get your hands on it, and what I've said so far appeals to you, I'd recommend reading it. The last book that I finished is Closer by Dennis Cooper. I'm not going to say too much because I'm planning to do a full review, which should be up in a few weeks. I also haven't finished it as of recording, but I don't have much left and will definitely be done with it by the time this video is posted, so it's not lying. But for now, I will say that I enjoyed it and that I enjoy Cooper's testing of the limits of sexuality in fiction. I will also share that the first explicitly queer book I ever read was Dennis Cooper's collection of short stories, Ugly Man. I believe I was a freshman in college and hadn't come to terms with my bisexuality yet. I also hadn't really read any sexually transgressive fiction at that point, so I recall finding the book off putting, but I also saw something there that I found intriguing and realized that I wasn't in a place where I could appreciate it yet. I unfortunately got rid of my copy at some point because I would really like to reread that collection at some point. Before we go, an update on my progress with Sur Le Seuil by Patrick Senécal. I didn't keep to my goal of a page a day. However, I did read the most pages I've ever read in one sitting in French, which is something to be proud of. I think it was 15 or 16 pages. It took me 2 hours, but I did it, and I feel very proud of myself. I think my big problem in the past was that I'd want to make sure I understood every word, and so I'd end up spending more time looking up words than reading the text. This time, however, I'm only looking it up if I'm unable to get the gist of what's being said, so it's a lot more fluid of a reading experience. I'm currently on page 28, which means I have not finished chapter 1. However, I am enjoying myself, and my schedule's opening up soon, so my goal for next month is to finish chapter 2, which ends on page 67. And I think it's definitely doable. And that's a wrap on July. Next week, I'm going to begin a series of reviews, which I'm titling A Lukewarm Defense of Bentley Little. So get excited for that. But until then, my name's Will, and this has been Will 2. What was that? Oh my god. Oh my god.